This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we revisit sci-fi, fantasy, and just plain weird shows.
This week, Day of the Triffids, episodes 1 and 2.
It's Wednesday, May the 12th. Yesterday was Tuesday, May the 11th. And only one night's passed since then, and everything was normal then.
The sky's just full of shooting stars.
Is it to do with last night? You saw it, I suppose. I must have been the only person that didn't see it.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast about homicidal botany. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
I did it again. As soon as you started talking, I went, oh no, I don't have anything that's real.
Well,
I don't know why I can't remember.
Don't change it now. I mean, why change it now?
After nearly 100 of them, I can't remember what's real.
You've never had anything real ever happen to you?
No.
All right. Well, what is happening is we are starting a new series this week, Day of the Triffids. Mm-hmm. And to kick us off, we're joined by a guest. Nico, welcome aboard.
Hi, guys. Happy to be here. Just keeping it real, you know?
Oh, he's keeping it real.
Yeah.
This guy knows. This guy gets it.
It's our British guest for our British series.
Well, he's you sold him to me as our Triffid expert.
Yeah.
There are many across the UK.
Well,
it's really quite a wide speciality.
You're the only one that we know of, British person, I mean. So we're glad to have you here for this series.
Thank you. Yeah, my accent might just waft right in the middle of understandability and
just like
niche.
me watching the show, I'm like, what's that guy's name? I don't know. I can't understand his accent.
In the first episode, they didn't even mention the guy's name, do they?
No, the guy's name. I just kept hearing them mention this doctor's name. I'm like, Simcoe? What's this doctor's name?
Well, it's funny because it's Dr. Soames, and there's a guy called Nicholas Soames who's like very famous in the UK for being a rabidly conservative politician and like morbidly obese and just generally kind of like Rob Ford before Rob Ford, but also with a British accent and aristocratic. So I was enjoying that quite enormously.
It was a good inside joke for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
See, that's why you're here. You're here to point out all the inside baseball we don't get.
Yes, 80s British political references.
Well, speaking of Day of the Triffids, I'll start with you, Jordan. Did you know anything about this going in?
Nothing. Actually, I know more of it just from having conversations with Nico in the office beforehand, mentioning that we were doing this show, because I embarrassingly didn't know anything about this. And doing a little bit of research, I realized it's much, much bigger than I thought it was. Not particularly this series, but the book and the culture and the fan base behind it.
Yeah, this is all brand new to me too. And I also kind of, while looking into it, was just like, oh, there's been a few remakes of this, actually. I mean, this is itself kind of a remake, but Nico, can you explain to us the fascination behind Triffids?
I don't know if there's a fascination per se, but growing up, it was.
You were aware of this series, though.
Oh, absolutely. Well, more so the book than the series. The book is kind of on a par with War of the Worlds in the UK as kind of being a household name of a story.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like something you were forced to read in high school?
I didn't read that one. We were forced to read a different Wyndham novel, which it's very similar. It's
there's more novels.
There's more, yeah, and they're all post-apocalyptic. That's kind of
I was hoping
niche.
everyone was just a different plant. That was his thing. He no matter what, the publisher's like, just something different. He's like, no, it's plants or nothing.
This is your fantasy, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting start to the series, but before we get into it, let's sort of talk about it. Broadcast on BBC One between September 10th and October 15th, 1981. As I do, I looked into sort of the history around what was going on in the world when this was airing. But in this particular case, I looked at British history.
And it's just between this little 6 weeks or whatever?
Yeah, the little window where this show was airing. And what was happening in Britain during that period was two series started, which I don't know how famous they are really, but apparently they're big in the UK. And you can tell me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. First episode of Postman Pete aired.
I like Postman Pete.
Yes, I live for Postman Pete, 100%.
So that was happening during this Triffid series. And the first episode of Danger Mouse also aired.
Oh.
I loved Danger Mouse. I loved it. It wasn't so much daytime TV. It was just like every once in a while the Danger Mouse theme tune would come on and I'd lose my 6-year-old mind.
What is the Danger Mouse theme?
On it. I'm not going to bite on that little piece of hazing. Thank you.
Don't fall into that trap. And finally, Belize declared independence from the UK.
Oh.
Yeah, Belize broke free.
Good riddance. That's what I say.
All right. Let's get into episode 1 and talk about the Triffids here. Here's the IMDb summary for episode 1. Bill, who works at a farm for deadly plants called Triffids, was temporarily blinded by one of them and is now in the hospital. The hour approaches for the bandages to come off, but a strange silence pervades the room. This is courtesy of Jay Sperlin.
I think that was more than we needed. Just like guy wakes up, bandages. What's happening? That's it.
Do you recognize Jay Sperlin's name?
No.
I think he's done stuff for us before.
Really?
I think so. I couldn't check though because he's written episode synopses for approximately 50,000 episodes.
Oh,
of
really? He's one of those
television.
guys?
Yeah. Impossible for me to tell. which
Every
one.
day he's writing one and he's thinking people care. No one does. No one cares, Jay.
I don't know.
Get a life.
You get so mad at the people writing these summaries while you're doing this podcast.
That's right.
You're benefiting directly from his work.
From him? From
Yes,
his? No, I'm
100%.
not.
A man
No.
who's more succinct than we will ever be.
No, I said it. Guy wakes up blind. He's like, what's up?
Yeah.
It's funny because on the drive here, I was listening to one of your episodes, and I'm 99% confident the bio was again by Jay
Sperlin.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I'm absolutely sure we've come across him before.
Either way, him zero, me hero. How's that for succinct?
I don't know why he starts so many feuds on this podcast. All right, you want to talk about this opening title sequence on this show?
Yeah, I really like this opening. One, we get like, at first I didn't know what was happening. It's sort of a greenish blue, just really tight close up on someone's face, and they're looking around confused, and you have very ominous choir music happening, and then it cuts to other people's faces, and then it's like, hey, Day of the Triffids. But that's it. That's the opening. They don't explain anything.
Yeah, it's a very atmospheric. I quite enjoyed the little opening. It put me in the mood for whatever the show was going to be. And the episode, as is mentioned, I think, primarily focuses on a man named Bill Mason who's waiting in his hospital bed to get his bandages off.
Oh, I forgot to mention one thing in the opening credits. At the very end, when they're all looking up in the thing, a tentacle comes and smacks one woman in the face.
That's true.
I forgot about that. That was funny.
It's funny because I missed it on the first episode, and then I saw the second episode, just like this woman getting smacked in the face. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit more context.
And it's very indicative of what the puppetry and special effects will be in this. Sort of just people hurling puppets at each other's faces. That's good, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's honestly the most British sounding television already.
But yes, Bill's waking up. He's got bandage on his face. And what we're going to get is a lot of exposition this episode for the most part.
Yeah.
Which is done in a way, I mean, it's very of the time, I guess. But it's been a long time since I've seen someone recording a voice memo into a tape recorder for a friend. He's just like, I'm going to send this to my friend Walter a little later. I'm just going to record a little voice memo.
You see, I didn't realize for the longest time that he was doing it for someone. I thought he was just like, well, I got nothing else to do, so I think I'll just talk to
Can you
myself.
imagine though getting that? Like someone's like, hey, so I was in the hospital for a while. Here's 3 hours of my thoughts. I'm like, yeah, I'll get to that later.
Like, I realize it's pre-cell phone, but at the same time, surely he's just going to see this guy in,
Talk to him.
5 hours or something. Like
the bandages are about to come off. Although apparently Walter's been sending these to him as well, because this is like a return message.
Do you think when they get together, they just sit down and they put the tape recorder between them and just play and just stare at each other's face while the recording plays?
You think when he gets home, they're just going to listen to it together?
Yeah.
sounds like my parents' marriage.
Interesting. and sorry, what did that song sound like? Danger Mouse? What did it sound like?
You'll have to earn it.
All right.
Not yet.
All right. But what we do come to learn about him is he works at a Triffid farm and was blinded by a Triffid. That's why he's there.
So it's not a good job working on the Triffids farm.
Not a good job. I mean,
Now, do you think he goes by scientist or farmer?
I don't think he's a scientist. I get the feeling he's a little more blue collar than that.
I think laborer.
Laborer.
That's probably closer. And he's going to quit being a Triffid farmer because he's tired of it. He's tired of all this Triffid nonsense. He's going to quit to raise potatoes and puppies, he says?
Yeah, he said plant potatoes and breed puppies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's recording this for his, as we said, coworker Walter, who's going to write a book on Triffid. So he's going to provide him with, I think as he puts it, my theories and insights for your book. And this kind of sets up a series of flashbacks that I'm just going to run through these flashbacks with you guys, and we can just kind of talk about what we get. Because this is basically I don't think I've ever seen this because they're all half-hour episodes, but I don't think I've ever seen an episode of television was like, here's a half hour. It's all set up. He's not gonna get out of his bed. He's gonna be blind for 99% of this episode. At the end of it, that's when things are gonna start rolling. I'm not saying I disliked it. I was just like a weird way to set up a television program. Our first flashback to 1961, the office of European Oil, which I assume is some sort of petroleum company. It was not very clear to me.
Do you think European Oil is a real company?
I have no idea.
No.
I don't think so.
No,
either.
I don't think so.
I was wondering if it was a government office, though, or something. Is it the office of petroleum? I don't know. But there seems to be some sort of Russian defector there. Is that who this guy is who's just smoking a big cigar?
Palangas? Palangas?
Sure.
I wrote it down. I think it was Palangas? The Russian Palangas. Palangas.
So we agree he's Russian, even though he doesn't
Yeah.
have an accent.
And also not a Russian last name, but I think they've implied he's Russian.
Yeah, well, they say he's from behind the Iron Curtain, or at least he's received some sort of vegetable oil from behind the Iron Curtain. And what does the vegetable oil do? Why is the petroleum company so excited about vegetable oil?
Yeah, they talk about it a lot throughout the episode about how this Triffid oil is just like crack for whatever purpose they're using it for, but they never explain beyond that.
Yeah, there's some indication it like improves. I wrote it down here. Where is it? It's like, it causes energy savings. And I was just like, what does that mean?
I think you just wave your hand over it. You just know that there's a new plant, new oil, everyone's excited. That's all you really need to know. You know?
It does have, we are told it has extraordinary properties.
Yeah.
Very extraordinary.
Well, what do you got? You got your lubrication. You got
What are you talking
your-
about? Vegetable oil or petroleum?
just oil. You got
Cooking.
your cooking. That's a good use.
I like you got to lubrication and ran out of options for oil.
Well, I'm hoping I was staring at your blank face. I was hoping something would come. You got your I don't know. Whatever they use oil for, the kids.
It's funny you say cooking oil because he mentions later that the oil is better if they maintain the venomous sting in the Triffid plant.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm like, so using it as cooking oil, just like that extra spice of, you know,
Oh,
danger.
That's probably
in the
what it
frying
is.
Pan, yeah.
Yeah.
A little tasted advantage on those Triffid oil. But this oil executive, he's very interested in getting the seeds to make these plants and to cultivate them himself. Because they're from some crazy Russian scientist. They say there's rumors of a Russian scientist on the other side of the wall who's like experimenting with things. So this is kind of some loose thing to be like, where are these plants from? What's going on? He'll pay him 10 million pounds plus a percentage of the profits just to get these seeds.
That's a man who wants some seeds.
It's it can be big business. But before they can ever get the seeds, the man or the Russian expat, he goes missing. And this is kind of this is a very strange flashback because it doesn't involve Bill. Bill's like recounting an event he was never at. It's kind of like, I guess this is just hearsay he's heard over the years as to like the first mention of Triffids.
It is weird because they use the vehicle of the flashback throughout this whole episode, but not all of them are flashbacks. Like this one, it's just like, well, yeah, he's just telling a story to his friend in a tape recorder. But other times it is his memories. But it's like, it's clearly just they have backstory they're trying to get through, and so
I mean,
this is what they chose.
If you think this is happening in like 1980s, like here's the first backstory is from 1961 from a meeting between a petroleum executive about some plant oil. It is like a really long con because then they mention that this guy went missing, and Bill has a theory that he was shot down in a plane and then all the seeds scattered to the wind. But no one backs this theory up. Like it's just Bill's idea of how this happened. But this is his idea of how Triffid seeds kind of got into the wild.
So do you think he's just made all this up? He's telling a story of something he's just...
Well, he does say these are his theories. And we've established he's some sort of laborer. He's just kind of like this. His best guess is from the little he's read.
The little he's read. I don't think... He doesn't come across as a dumb guy.
I mean, no, but you just think that because he's a beard like you.
One, his beard is better than me. And two, I think it's a sign of intelligence. No?
No, not in the slightest.
Flashback 2, we see Bill Mason as a small boy encountering his first Triffid in his daddy's backyard.
And we get the first look at the Triffid. What do you all think of it?
It's the best. I love it so much.
Nico, do you want to describe what a Triffid looks like in this version?
Do you love it? Do you love what a Triffid looks like?
Oh boy, it looks it looks like I'm blanking on what the word is. The thing, you know, the HMV logo. Oh
No,
no, you know like those old.
like a viola. Or
No.
like not a like the.
No, like the original vinyl recorders where they came out with the horn.
It's not viola. It's
the stereophone or something.
Yeah. It's the RCA label.
Yes.
Yeah. Logo.
So I imagine it looks like if the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. Exactly. I imagine.
What is it?
It's like it's the
Jordan
sound.
just showed us a photo of the logo.
I love showing
But not
photos
the wood.
on an audio podcast. It's I don't know whatever the horn is, the sound horn. That's what we're talking about. It has that sort of cocoon sort of.
Yeah, I thought it kind of looked a little bit like a pitcher plant too, like the carnivorous plants that flies fly into.
Yeah.
But it's tall. It's at least what 4 or 5 feet.
Yeah, 4 or 5, maybe 6. I think it's pretty big.
I think it's tall because it's taller than
they say
any
actually
other people.
7 to 8 feet tall.
Oh,
Yeah.
7 to 8 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty thick stem.
Got a little stem. It's got little roots on the bottom that it can use for locomotion.
Yes, and they point out these little lumps that point upwards as well, which look like little stumpy mushrooms.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I thought it looked
Yes,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, and they click. They click on the side of the stem. Stem, is that right? Yeah.
They tap. They got little tapping sounds they make.
Yeah.
And inside of it, there's like what's it called? I had to look up plant biology because I don't remember any of it from school. It's just it's like a little pistol that comes out of a flower. But this one is extendable. It has about a 10-foot range on it because it can shoot out and sting you with its poison. This is where the poison's located, in this little like tongue, basically.
Yeah.
And I like because what we learn is the dad and the son are in their garden. This plant has just shown up. I don't know how he hasn't noticed this like 7-foot plant show up. They sort of talk about it a bit, and then he thinks it's evil, right? The kid thinks it's evil for some reason.
He goes to the movies.
Oh, that's what it was.
He goes to the movies and sees a newsreel entitled 1/8 in Ecuador.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Do you know what 1/8 means?
No.
I had to Google this. Do you know what 1/8 means?
No.
It's an idiom for being drunk.
Really?
So
1/8.
And I think that's why when they're watching the newsreel, everybody in the movie theater is just laughing their asses off at these walking plants. But I think the joke of that scene is all these plants are wandering around Ecuador and they look like drunks. And isn't that the funniest thing you've ever seen?
Really?
Because they start showing all these plants. They're like, Ecuador is overrun by these weird plants that are just walking around on their own. And the entire audience is just laughing. It's the funniest thing they've ever seen.
You see, I read that as if nobody was taking it seriously. Like they thought it was some exotic Latino joke being played on the rest of the world.
I thought just people did take it seriously. It was like, isn't that funny? That's never going to happen to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Maybe.
that might be something. But I because I've looked up what the term means, I'm guessing that's a little piece of the puzzle. Because I was just like, I don't fully understand why this is the funniest thing they've ever seen. It's just plants walking around.
Regardless, the point is he sees these things that they're sort of violent plants.
Well, we don't even know they're violent yet. They're just wandering around.
But in the newsreel, don't they show like the people like trying to burn them and stuff?
No, that's the next
That's much
flashback.
Oh, it's the next
That's
flashback.
later.
Sorry, I'm mixing up my 45 flashbacks. So anyways, he goes back home, decides he's going to dig the thing up. It doesn't like digging up, and then attacks him in the worst shot action sequence ever, where the camera's so low that you don't actually see what's happening, and then the kid has to go, my face, and fall over, and he's been hit, and he's been poisoned.
He's been stung. First person in the UK to be stung by a Triffid.
What a claim to fame, huh?
It also, he thinks, is the reason he's so resistant to their poison now.
Yeah, so we mentioned before that you didn't think that he was a dumb guy, but if the
Why did I say
traumatic if the traumatic memory of your childhood is being stung in the face, being kicked to your deathbed by a walking plant, my immediate reaction isn't to then go back and work with walking plants.
He literally does say, it's just like, I knew it was my calling after I got stung in the face by one to go work at a Triffid farm. I'm like, how?
Yeah, like, this thing nearly killed me? Well, let's death in the face and just go for it, I guess.
I think it seems logical.
I mean, a spreadsheet did kill your father.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Now you work with spreadsheets all day.
Yep, that's right. Killed both my parents. But then the kid gets stung in the face, and then his dad like stabs the thing to death, and then we're back to old.
Did you like?
Bill.
Did you like when they smashed that Triffid to bits? It
I
looked
did.
good.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
all fibrous and
I
gross
like
and gooey.
Let's just say none of the puppetry, as it were. I guess it doesn't look very good in this, and it looks about as low budget as possible. However, I think it's aged about as well as like CGI from 10 years ago. Like it doesn't look good, but whatever. Who cares? Like,
I don't
it's
think it
just
looks
fun.
bad.
It
But what were you
doesn't
saying,
look
Nico?
Well, two things. So one, the dad hacks at it from the front, directly in front of the venomous stinger. So this kid is, getting smacked in the face by the venomous stinger for going at the roots
Just
from an
out.
angle, and he's like, nah. And then get away, like a pissed off cat. But then as soon as the dad comes with this machete and starts hacking it down at the front, it's like, okay, well,
It's true. You really had that machete at the ready.
yeah, he's like, shit,
But he was all like, "Oi there, that's my son," and so forth.
Careful, careful.
You're really out to make enemies tonight.
No.
This leads into our third flashback, which is the cull of the Triffids.
Right. Okay.
Because at this point, we start to learn the Triffids are all over the world. They're attacking people. They got stingers. We come to what are we going to learn? We learn they're carnivorous. We know that they'll poison their victims, let them die, and then once they start to decompose, they will eat the victims.
Okay. Now I have a question. Probably both of you caught this and I didn't. What they say is basically they eat the rotting carcass of the human, right?
Correct.
But do they not need that to grow normally? And do you know what I mean? Like, don't they? If you're not being fed humans, what are they growing on?
I would assume they're eating like a squirrel, or maybe there's a lot of flies.
So
in
you
their
think
mouths.
they're like in later when we see the Triffid farm, you think they're throwing in like rotten animals?
Oh, I think once they start farming them, 100%. Like it's like Jurassic Park. Just put a cow in there or something.
The Jurassic Park of plants, I guess. Like, yeah.
Just stared at Nico till he said something.
Break.
But yes, this is where we see them burning down the plants. There's like almost a world extermination of them until someone finally like puts like the vegetable oil and the Triffids together and realizes like, oh, these are the plants that make the thing that is magic that makes our things say energy savings. Everybody, I just assume petroleum companies. Like this is just a screed against oil companies. And so this is when the Triffid farms are started because, hey, if we keep them under wraps, and it seems to go well because what we come to see in this next flashback is Bill working at this Triffid farm with his buddy Walter. And they start talking about keeping them, they're in pens, they're like kind of fenced off, and they work in a kind of a laboratory. It looked like, have you seen Chernobyl?
Yes.
It looked like the like Chernobyl like command center. It was like spinning wheels and like
it's a very high tech
doodads.
farm, is what it is.
And him and Walter just start talking about like Triffids in general. Like what they start talking about how like one of their coworkers wants to get their kid a Triffid as a pet, and like that's a funny and like fun thing to do for a kid apparently. Like Triffids are like pretty trivialized at this point.
Well, because they said they've been depoisoning them, right?
Yeah.
So they're just smacking you out a little bit. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it's
With
like
a little pistol.
It's like how you took that stink stack out of that skunk you have as a pet.
That's right. Apparently, they do make good little pet skunks.
Sure, why not?
I mean, if you take out the one thing that's annoying about them,
Yeah,
you know.
Well, yeah, but then it's just like sticking its ass at you the whole time.
I don't know if they have to. They're like, hey.
No, that's how I imagine it.
Oh,
100%. You know, it's just very flamboyant, very Pepe Le Pew from the start.
Pepe was a little bit rapey, huh? Did you watch those cartoons?
I think more than a little bit.
he had some issues.
Yeah.
Those are getting parental advisories nowadays.
It's true. They haven't brought him back. He hasn't had a resurgence.
No.
All right, let's get back to Walter and Bill here. What else do we kind of learn about the Triffids in this scene is they think, or at least Walter thinks, they're communicating.
Bills thinks they're clicking because
He just thinks they're dumb animals or
Right.
dumb plants. Like the general consensus is Walter's just like, I'm gonna write this book because we have Triffids everywhere. Apparently, there's been like no research done on them, and he's sure there's like some base level intelligence they have, and that they might be communicating with these weird clicks you can constantly hear, which is a nice little sound effect actually. Because later when we use them, you can always tell when a Trifvid's coming because you just hear some clacking coming. But there's sort of like this conversation about that. He's noticed anyway that Triffids always go for the eyes. He wants to blind their victim, so he suspects. Walter's very suspicious of the Triffids.
Would you put two and two together though? Like, wouldn't you just think like they're always just going for your face?
You're a real Bill.
Well, I'm just saying.
A real dumb Bill.
If you notice a whole bunch of people were attacked in the face, I'd be like, oh, they go for your face. It's just very specific that he thinks it's the eyes. He's extrapolating a lot of information based on one thing, is all I'm saying.
I mean, he's writing this book.
Well, I mean, if they're also feeding like pigs and squirrels to these things, then surely they could see from like a range of heights.
I'm just saying, it'd be one thing if the little was it pistol?
Yeah.
If it came out and, like poke you in the eye, that'd be one thing. But it's sort of like slapping you across the face near your eyes. Anyways, I don't know why I'm picking at this guy.
You're a real skeptic. You're a real Bill.
Yeah, I think they're just harmless plants, is what I'm saying.
You know what? Just random. I don't know why this hit me. Random crazy thought. I want to see a giraffe take on a Triffid.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Just like spit way up, see if it lands.
I mean, they got this 10-foot tongue, so that might be enough. Depends how tall that giraffe is, though.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan, remember when you grew that inhuman giraffe neck?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do the voice.
It was just, "Hey, I'm a giraffe." That was it.
Right.
That's the only voice I
It's
do.
your character.
Yeah, that's the character.
Your running character now. This brings us to the final of the flashbacks of this episode. The night before, when Bill has his gauze on, post attack from the Triffids, waiting for the next day when they're going to take it off. First thing in the morning, they promised him 7 a.m. They're taking
Yeah,
off
7
his
a.m. And it's,
bandages.
by the way, it's now 7:50, right? Is that what he finds out?
Well, no, this is the night before still.
Oh, it's the night before still.
Because the nurse and doctor pop in to check on him. They're like, "Oh, you're just missing it. There's this great light show. Comets are flying through the atmosphere. It's like happening all across the world. It's amazing." And at least two people, one person on the radio and the doctor himself refers to it as like, it's just free entertainment.
Yeah, that's right. They keep saying free entertainment. And I was like, what is happening in England right now? What entertainment are you having to pay for that they're so upset about, and that they're like, free entertainment? Free entertainment?
Guys, the TV license in England is highly controversial. You know?
Got to get that free entertainment. I just noticed how many times I'm just like, really weird. They're worried about the price of entertainment. But he's missing this, and he's kind of learning that there's some sort of light show going on. This is kind of the final seed we need to know for his day, waiting in his bed for someone to come take his bandages off his face.
You see, I thought that him talking to the doctor and nurses was a flashback in and of itself.
No, I think you're right. It
Yes,
is,
yeah.
it is a flashback. I'm just sort of now taking us into the day where he's sitting in bed. He's like, he starts his tape recorder. He thinks it's the middle of the night because it's so quiet, but he's just like, when's someone going to come and take off this gauze?
Well, raise a point, to both of you. Let's say you're in a hospital. You've been blinded, and the person hasn't come to take your bandages off. How long are you waiting before you taking those bandages off? Are you taking them off right away, or are you just going to sit there? I would like to think I take them off right away, but I think probably it would be like 6 p.m. and I'd still have it on. I'd be like, they're going to show up soon. They're going to show up. I'd be seething with anger, but I wouldn't have done anything about it.
So you'd just be stewing passive aggressively,
Yeah.
blindly,
Yes.
in a blind rage.
Would you take it off?
I think I would just spam the nurse help me button for hours.
Just keep pushing it,
Keep pushing it, and then I might wander through the hallways.
It's funny. I had this exact same thought too. As I was watching, I'm like, how long would I wait before I take the bandages off? And they do scare Bill at some point, being like, if you take it off wrong, you're going to go blind again.
Because that's the note I put. I'm like, why doesn't he just take it off? Like, he knows something's wrong. But then, they've scared him going, if you take it off, like, you might just lose your eyes. It's like, well, I guess that's something.
And I was just like, yeah, no, I would just never take it off.
And also, like, they show that he has no concept of what time it is, because he's been listening, he's been using the sounds to determine what time of day it is, and everything's so quiet because of the apocalypse that...
He's really adapted to being blind very quickly. And he's only been in this state for 10 days.
Yes. I was thinking that he'd become Daredevil pretty quickly.
He daredeviled up pretty quickly. Which is just interesting because later we'll see on the show, they give blind people literally zero credit. But for some reason, Bill is Daredevil like after 10 days.
Yeah.
But yes, after a while, he does get up. He wanders around. He screams for someone to bring his breakfast. He's just yelling down the hallway, "Nurse, where's my breakfast?"
That's his top priority, is not getting the bandages off, but getting fed.
He does get very sad. And eventually, the paranoia kind of gets to him, and he finally does take these bandages off. And we get to see him sort of explore, trying to figure out what's going on. And as he's wandering the empty hospital, he bumps into the doctor from the previous night. And the doctor's like climbing the stairs. He's like, "Who's there?" And he's just like, "Doctor, it's me, Bill," from that room. And he's like, "Bill, you can see. I need to find a phone." And Bill, considering Bill's been blind technically for 10 days, he does not pick up on the fact this doctor is clearly unable to see. Like, this doctor's groping everything.
You mean how he's stumbling, like pulling himself up the stairs and like just waving his hand blindly?
And Bill's just like, "Doctor, what's wrong? Why are you doing that? What's happening here?" The doctor finally has to yell. He's like, "I'm blind. Can't you tell?" Oh, Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
I think we can definitively say Bill's kind of a dumb guy.
I don't know if he is. I'm still on the side that he might be an intelligent man.
I think he's, your typical 70s, 80s British kind of wet middle class stereotype.
Well, it's not in this episode. Actually, no, it is right here. Because has he changed into clothes yet?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna ruin it for the next thing though. The next episode is that I like that it may be the end of the world. It's an apocalypse. You've just come out of the hospital, and what do? Suit and tie.
I think that's what he came in with.
But talking about his outfit, what I love is everyone in the world is blind. This has been established. He's figured this out. And what does he do? He's like the only guy who can see. he puts on aviators.
It's true. I will give him this. When he changed out of that gown into that shirt, tie, and like jacket combo and put those sunglasses on, I'm like, yeah, all right. You look pretty good, Bill.
He looks good.
You look good, Bill.
Shame no one can enjoy it, but
Yeah, this is just for me. This is self-love, Bill says.
But that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, we get a
cliffhanger.
quick cutaway to the empty Triffid pins at the farm, and we're like, uh-oh, something's gone wrong.
You see, that really caught me off guard because usually with a cliffhanger ending, there's, a dun 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 or some music, but then it's been 25 minutes of exposition and then it just ends.
Yeah, just a hard cut to over.
There's no like theme tune or anything. It's just like something falls into water and okay, it's the credits. Like, yeah.
I guess this is over.
But that'll be something we're going to see, I think, in the next few episodes, is that there's not going to ever be a huge cliffhanger. It's just going to be kind of halfway through a scene. Like, but didn't you like that scene? Don't you want to watch the next episode?
Yeah, I mean, they toy with a cliffhanger. It's not like a hard cliffhanger, though. It's more like the chapter has ended, and before they end it, they're like, oh, and Triffids are loose. They're like, what? Okay, I'll come back next week. I guess it's a problem, though, because they're doing them in like half-hour chunks. So they really, I mean, I do appreciate it. I feel like they're speeding through as much of the story as they can
the
get.
reason there is so much exposition is because they want to get through this as fast as possible, which I'm fine. Like, great, it's an episode setup. Now we're all set up and good to go.
That's true. All right, let's get to the IMDb summary for part 2.
Are there people on the streets?
No, it's eerie. It's almost totally quiet.
Oh, that won't last for long.
What do you mean?
Time. Well, everybody will be like us at first. They won't know what's happened. They'll be too frightened to move. And then they'll get hungry. And they'll start looking for food. I mean, this town's nasty at the best of time. 2 or 3 days, it won't be just hooligans. There'll be people you thought butter wouldn't melt, be killing each other for scraps of food.
Bill leaves the hospital to learn that everyone in the area, perhaps everyone in the world, has gone blind. He and anyone else who didn't see the comet the previous night are the exceptions. Meanwhile, the Triffids are attacking. That was also courtesy of Jay Sperlin.
Yeah, I think it was a little too long again, Jay. I don't want to tell you to do your job of, sitting in your parents' basement writing your reviews of your movies, but a little too long.
This is outrageous.
Is it outrageous?
This is outrageous.
Ah, he's fine. He's fine. just poking him. Or her, I guess. No, Jay's a guy's name, I guess.
It's just J. Dot.
Oh, it's J. Dot?
Could be Jillian.
Ooh, mysterious.
Either way.
It is mysterious.
There's nothing mysterious about this person.
You're going to get an angry tweet at you at some point.
Yeah, well, whatever.
That's happened. This picks up right where it left off. He shows this doctor to a phone. Phones don't work. So he goes to wander around the hospital. We kind of get to see like a little bit of a zombie scene where these blind people are groping around a hallway trying to find their way. Find some dude with his leg in traction who can see. He appears to be unaffected by it. But he just kind of like leaves the man there.
Well, the guy's kind of pissy at him.
Yeah,
that is true.
He's
He's
just
a bit
like,
of a jerk.
yeah, he like sees the guy and the guy's just not nice. He's like, all right, see you later.
He just wants his breakfast like anyone else.
He's like, pull the curtain, and he looks over, and there's a dead person on the floor, and he's like, this is uncomfortable. I think we're going to go now.
Good luck.
Now, would you clean up the dead person?
No.
No, I wouldn't either.
It's a hospital. There's people for that.
I'd pretend I didn't see it.
Or maybe like kick it so the guy can't see it
Just
on the side of the
close
curtain.
that curtain again.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. And he wanders his way back to check on the doctor, who has just finished jumping off a balcony to his death.
You see, that I don't understand. It's like, did the doctor commit suicide, or has everyone lost their minds sufficiently that they're just falling over?
Jordan and I have the same thought on this subject.
I don't know. I think he killed himself, but
Oh.
I think he killed himself because the phone wasn't working, and that really upset him.
All right, we don't agree. I assumed he just walked over there because he's blind and tripped and fell off the side of the balcony.
He could have.
And this takes me to the larger point of this universe, is that everyone's been blind for what? I don't know, 6 hours at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah, not
And-
long.
Yeah, it's 6 hours, and the phone lines are down. They establish later that like all the gas has gone out.
electricity. It's all
Yeah,
like the entire
things-
world has collapsed in 6 hours.
Yeah,
In 6
things
hours.
have gone bad real quick.
It is. I did have that question too. I'm just like, I don't know if everyone going blind, like your phones would still work. There's no reason the phone wouldn't work.
Yeah,
Because-
exactly.
Because there's one guy who's got a lever that turns all phones on, and he's blind, and he accidentally pushed it to the off position, and now he can't find the switch again.
Are there switchboard operators in 1980? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, and they're all just spinning around, jumping out windows.
Just jumping out windows. But yes, this is when Bill decides to dress all cool and get out of the hospital.
Yeah.
Now we finally meet a new character, Gisela Peyton, or Joe,
Or Joe.
as she goes by.
Which is much better than Gisela. Is that even a name?
Also, is Joe short for Gisela?
She just... Because otherwise it's Jiz.
The spelling is Jos. So
Joss.
Joss.
Joss. Oh, Joss isn't so bad.
Oh, I see. I assumed it was Jess.
No, I
thought
know
it was Jizz.
No, yeah, well, you would. It's Josella.
This is a classic British name.
Classic. Famously, the many Gisellas across all the Austen novels.
Did you like that she was dressed as April O'Neil from the 1980s
I
Ninja Turtle show?
wrote the exact same thing.
She's all one yellow jumper.
Yeah.
She can see because... Do you remember why she can see? Did you pick this up?
I missed this, I think.
She can see because she was so hungover yesterday, she
Yeah.
took a bunch of sleeping pills and fell asleep at 4 p.m. And I was like, Joe, you've got a problem.
That works, though, if you don't want to go blind from a possible meteor shower, whatever it is.
You know what? To be fair, if you have a hangover and you just take some sleeping pills, you're going to get right over it. I used to do it with Oxycontin all the time. It was great. She drives off from her home to find a doctor for Daddy, as she
Yeah.
puts it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part is she sees the word daddy. I'm like, daddy. And I like as she drives away, she knocks over a wheelbarrow. And I was just like, why did we get that shot of her knocking over a wheelbarrow?
Well, it's weird because then she comes across the first kind of sense we get that things are really going badly, as Nico mentioned, the first 6 hours of everyone being blind, because she gets attacked like almost immediately.
Yeah, her car runs out of gas.
Which is, by the way, again, not an instance of anything that has to do with what's happened to blindness. It's just she just forgot to put gas in her car.
This is a highly unreliable human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her daddy should never have sent her for this doctor. Yeah, she gets out. A couple of blind people are like, "Oh, hey, I can hear you're driving a car. Will you take care of us?" And then a really scruffy, bearded blind man comes up. He's like, "Don't listen to them. They're crazy." He's kind of like dismisses them. He's like, "Maybe I can help you. Maybe you and I can get together and do some work." And then he pulls a switchblade on her.
Yeah, was that a switchblade? Because
Yeah.
Okay, from the angle that I saw, I thought it was just like a large splinter.
No,
I thought this
a
guy was just like
switchblade.
holding like a sharp piece of wood at her throat, and I'm like,
I found this wood on the ground.
No, as soon as he pulled it out, I was like, England in the 1980s.
just switchblades.
Yeah, just switchblades.
I mean, how else does one shave?
I mean, that man never shaved. He had
That's
a
true.
beard bigger than Jordan's.
Yeah, it's true. But he didn't look good. He didn't look like a smart bearded man.
Oh, he was a dumb beard.
He looked like a hooligan.
No, he looked like Blind Blessed.
Oh,
Do
he
you know?
did look like
Yeah,
Brian Blessed.
yeah.
Nice call.
Thank you. That's a British reference for the people out
Anyways, he
A
pulls
lot
a
of
knife on
fan
her and he's like, get me food and drink.
I believe he says,
there. Now you've lost me.
he's like, "You'll be my eyes now."
Mm-hmm.
And we cut back to Bill, and he's now just wandering the city in his aviators on, just checking out the scene. Comes across a little girl who can also see, pretending to drive a car in front of her home.
I like that. I like that there's possibly an apocalypse happening around her, and she's like, whatever, I'm still going to go play.
She's like, "No one's gonna stop me from honking the horn of this car." But when he gets there to see that, well, what's up with this little girl who can see, he kind of meets her two parents, both blind. The mom has fallen down in the shower that morning and
Yeah,
smashed her face.
Because she was blind, and everyone knows if you're blind, you fall in the bathtub. That's just what happens.
It was interesting because they have no water either. I don't know what she was doing in there.
Just like holding buckets over her head. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, they don't have water. You're right. What was she doing in the bathtub?
Maybe they still have water. Maybe that's the only utility that's still functioning. But the dad is getting pretty desperate. He's worried about the neighborhood. It's full of hooligans, he says, and he's not sure what's going to happen once they all start coming out.
He hasn't dressed up, though.
No, he's blind. He can't anymore.
Yeah.
It's impossible for him to put on
He's
clothes.
just wearing his white vest.
He's wearing a pretty tatty tank top at that point.
The world's falling apart. Like, it was perfectly clean 6 hours ago.
Yeah, he looked like Bruce Willis about 90 minutes into Die Hard by that point.
He's begging Bill to stay with them and help them, and like a little too aggressively because Bill's just like, maybe I'm gonna go though. Maybe I don't want to stay here and help you.
So this scene just went on forever.
It did go on too long. I agree.
It went on so long because he's like, well, you've got a perfectly capable daughter who has two functioning eyes. Like, I'm going to peace out. And then they keep negotiating for 5 minutes.
There's a real long negotiation, and when Bill finally decides to leave, he's just like, all right, well, when you're done looking around, can you please come back? If you're still alive, that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for a 25-minute episode, they dedicate like 10
I know.
minutes to do a conversation that goes.
I assume
Nowhere.
the guy in the undershirt was a real get for them, and they're like, we got to use it. We got to use him as much as we can.
He's killing it. He's
Yeah.
killing it. I like how much he lies to his wife, and how much she doesn't seem to believe him at all.
He's just trying to protect his family.
That's right. You know, because her gentle female mind can't handle the strain.
Well, to be fair, she fell in a bathtub with no water in it. Am I right?
Blind
Yeah, there we go.
I'd lie to her too.
Building comes across a bunch of looters, blind looters, smashing open a grocery store, and they're all trying to like get into cans and eat whatever's in cans. One woman's just eating a box of Tide on the side.
That
of the
was my
road.
favorite
Yes.
part. I loved it. I loved that poor woman who's like, finally, I got something for myself. She thinks it's like a box of crackers or something, and it's Tide.
People are like so desperate 6 hours
Yeah.
in, it's crazy. And then like a gang of hooligans led by the one-sided hooligan comes along.
I'm assuming he had taken a bunch of Ambien for his hangover also.
I also had that question because he's clearly just like, I don't understand why him and his friends are blind, but he has somehow avoided it. And they're also just drunk. They're in like football scarves. They're drunk.
Yes.
It's like 9 a.m.
Yeah, I'm like, did they come straight from a game? Like, was there a game overnight that they're playing at?
Maybe that's what. Maybe he got so drunk he passed out.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they're on the way to the game, and it's still gonna be played that night. It was just all blind players. That's my theory. Maybe.
I mean, I'd like to see. I mean, if this is a world where a doctor who turns blind immediately walks out of a window because he can't figure out where he is, I'd like to see that football game.
But this scene gets real dark real fast because the blind hooligans, he's asking the sighted guys like, what do you guys want from this store? Like, we're walking by and they're like, we want a woman. He's like, all right, let me grab this one woman aside and we'll take her off with us. And I'm just like, whoa, what? This
Yeah.
is already getting really dark. And Bill's like, hey, don't do that. And he just gets like punched the fuck out. Like, he doesn't put up a fight at all. Like, Bill just gets...
Well, I think the point is, and it's maybe not choreographed very well, is that he does try to save the woman.
Yes, but he sucks.
But he sucks, and he just gets just beaten up badly, and that's it. And then you're just left to think like, well, I guess she went off with him.
Yeah,
That's a dark scene.
You are left with just like, oh, this is starting off.
I mean,
terribly.
but I was impressed that it got that dark though. And like, I mean, look, yes, it does seem like things have broken down very quick in society, but I do like that they're not at least shying away from how bad things.
I mean, this
are.
show is going to be The Road, apparently.
Yeah,
it's going
right.
to be like that level of darkness for a show about comets in the sky and walking plants. It's going to get real dark. Is this like the book? Is it this dark in the book?
Honestly, I can't remember.
Is he the Cormac McCarthy of London? Wyndham is just like, oh man, his books are pitch black. You guys, you can't even read them. We catch up with Bill kind of after he's been knocked out. He's nursing a black eye. We're seeing the empty streets of London. Nobody's out. It's just him. We hear someone singing somewhere. There's like a woman singing an aria like through the streets or something.
There's a lot of
sound
episodes-
design,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of just like people off in the distance either crying or singing or doing something as just a way, as a real quick shorthand to be like, something's happening over there.
It's true. And Bill will quickly get his chance to make up for his failings with the last woman when he hears another woman screaming for help.
So just going back, I really like the scene where he's walking through the empty streets of London, because I was reading and it's very clear that. Did you see 28 Days Later?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
It's a direct ripoff of this scene.
I actually went and read that, and that was like a direct homage to this. That was what that was supposed to be, is a reflection of this.
Well, I mean, this is very like, I mean, this has all the tropes of a zombie film. Like, it's interesting. I'm just like, I see them all, and I just found it really interesting that there's like this Triffid idea has been remade over. Like, this is, I mean, it basically seems like, oh, this is just zombies. People love this idea because it's just zombies, but we prefer it with like a plant that has a long tongue. I mean, it's an interesting idea.
But the thing is, you still do have the zombies spoiling ahead, because everyone, once they're blind, apparently loses all motor function and everything else. So you just see palms at all the windows.
Yeah, I mean,
at all
they
the
are
times.
basically helpless kind of zombie-like creatures for sure. I mean, they are still human and like cognizant, but they're just incapable, I guess. Is the
Everyone's
difference.
just
Yeah.
everyone's just driven by their most direct desire at that moment. It seems, right?
Do it
So
get
people are
some
like,
food.
I need food right now, or I need a woman right now, or whatever. It's like, so that's how people are acting.
Yeah, they're
just
kind of in a
irrationally.
panic. Yeah, they're in a panic. But yeah, I did notice the same thing. I'm like, this is the opening of 28 Days Later. I mean, shot similarly in some ways too, like same landmarks, same like clearly like early morning wide open streets. It was interesting. I caught that too. The woman screaming that Bill needs help though is Joe from earlier. She's been tied to a leash that the blind bearded man is leading her around on, and he's caning her over a set of stairs.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting development.
It was very odd.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his end game is, because I get why he's tied himself to her. She can see, he can't.
Yeah.
She's going to lead him. But is she a racehorse?
I think she must have disobeyed him.
But also, like, yes, I get that, you know, he has a knife, but how was he able to find the equipment to essentially handcuff this
I think he had it in his
able human
pocket
being?
before he went blind. He was all ready to go.
Just a BDMS kit?
Yeah.
BDSM?
You mentioned this with the wife too, the idea that it was like sarcastically that it's the delicate feminine persona. But that seems to be the case also. Like there's just like, it seems like no reason Joe could not have got the upper hand in this. Like this man is like pretty clumsy. He's totally blind. I'm just like, there's no way she couldn't have gotten away from this very slow, very old man, even with his switchblade.
With switchblade and like caning her with a walking stick, like
I know. I was just like, you can overcome this guy.
Yeah, I think if you just like briskly walk away, you might
might
stand
lose.
a chance. Yeah.
But if she does, Bill can't come and save her.
It's true. And well, Bill can't fight a sighted man. Boy, can he punch a blind man.
Yeah.
He really makes up for it by beating up an old blind man. And I was just like, oh, Bill.
He does deserve it, to be fair.
He is a bad man.
Regardless of his blindness.
But it was the only fight Bill was ever going to win.
Yeah.
Once he saved Joe, they head to the local pub, which, that's a little... I was like, it's probably not a direct nod to Shaun of the Dead, but I was just like, all right, let's all go to the pub, I guess.
He's really regained his masculinity at this point, you know, like after getting beaten down in the middle of the street.
Well, I'll tell you, nothing makes you feel like a man like beating up a blind guy.
Beating up a blind guy and then taking the woman to the pub.
Yeah. Like, let's go to the pub now. I feel good.
Yeah, let's get a packet of crisps.
They have a nice chat. They're really getting along. They're really hitting it off really quickly. We establish, these two are going to fall in love. No problem. I like they talk about, she's like, I need to go help my dad. And she's like, what's your story? And he's like, I'm an unmarried orphan. I'm like, what? He just announces that to her.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he just announces, I'm an unmarried orphan. And she's like, okay. He's like, can I come with you? She's like, I guess so. I mean, you might as well, I guess. You have nowhere to be.
I mean, is that like the nice guy approach, but
Yeah.
30 years beforehand?
Yeah. He's like, I'm
He's
an
like,
orphan.
Listen,
Aw.
I'm a nice guy. Both my parents are dead. Can I come back to your place?
Yeah. I'd like to meet your daddy. So they sort of take off from this pub and head back to her place. They steal a car, I think, don't they? They steal a lot of cars.
Well, that's the thing. I think they're always stealing cars. They don't really explain how they're doing it, but it's just sort of, well, they need a new car, so they just do.
I think in the 80s, you just left your keys in the ignition and walked away from it. I think that's how it worked.
The 80s.
A much more trusting time.
I blame Thatcher. Am I right?
Good.
Am I right, people?
Good reference.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's people in England are loving it.
They're like, Thatcher, she took our milk.
I think this is before Falklands too, so you know.
Yeah.
You know.
We're still on board.
People are like iffy, but you know they're waiting for the.
She's not personable, but she hasn't taken our milk or anything.
Exactly. You know, all she did was lock some coal miners out of their jobs for a year and a half. It's great.
I would like that we just keep talking about Thatcher for the next 10 minutes. Just more references to things she did in the 1980s.
We finally, though, as they get back to Joe's house, get some Triffids action.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 2 long episodes. I've been waiting for some Triffids action to come
And we
back.
get a great shot to start. It's like the Triffids a bit of a pervert, and it's just like peeking on them from like behind the bush, and then just like scuttles off.
They're real sneaky, these
Yeah.
Triffids.
Mm-hmm.
They're watching. They're waiting. We find out that the Triffids have already killed Joe's housekeeper and her dad.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to be worried about her housekeeper being blind earlier. This is the first time we hear about her housekeeper when we arrive and she's dead. She's like, oh, also my housekeeper's dead.
I think she forgot to check to see if she was also blind. She was just upstairs. She was still trying to clean stuff, but blind.
Just because her eyes went didn't mean her hands didn't.
Get to work. One of these Triffids, as they're sort of like staring through a window at the dead father, kind of finally emerges from the bushes and like trundles over to it. And you know what? I like watching them move.
I do too.
It's very fun watching them because they're like giant puppets. They're so big. It's so weird to watch them like tumble around and like try to like maneuver. The Triffids comes after Joe, but Bill, that's his name, distracts him and like he gets in a fight with the Triffid with a he finds a
Was it
it's
do you use
a
a
hoe, isn't
pitchfork
it?
or do you use like a
Pitchfork.
spade or
it's
something?
like a
that?
pitchfork or something he's found, and like he battles this Triffid and they kill it, and then more Triffids start coming out of the woodwork, and Joe sort of just like, hey, I think they're listening to us. Did you catch this? Like they start talking about the idea that the Triffids were listening and like they had planned some sort of surprise attack.
Yeah, well, because first of all, there's like a whole pack of them. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And yeah, I think they had gone away and then heard that they had arrived, and that's what she clocks in on.
Okay.
Is that they've walked in and she's made a couple gasps here and there.
They're speaking out loud.
She's just had as much information as the other guy who's decided they're talking with each other, or that they just go for the eyes. People are just making very, very quick assumptions.
Well, the talking I'll allow, because first of all, it very clearly sounds like a very deep dolphin speak. You know,
It's a good description.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like that echolocation.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Jordan's still skeptical about this.
I'm
whole
skeptical. I'm not reading that book. By
Jordan
what's his name? Walter? What's the guy's name? Dwayne?
Wyndham.
No, that guy. The guy who wrote the book in the show.
Oh, Walter.
Walter. Yeah.
But yes, there's a quick battle with the Triffids here. They get off. They escape once more in the car. They are just constantly running from every situation they get into.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of end up seeing like a little more of the streets of London. We see like some woman being menaced by a Triffid, and they just drive past her.
Well, sorry, Bill actually gets hit in the face again by a Triffid.
Oh, that's true. He does.
Yeah, he gets hit in the face again, and then they cut off the pistol. And they're like, oh, ran out of venom, I guess.
That's right. It was so busy killing her dad that it ran out of venom. You're right. I totally forgot about that.
It was so busy feasting on the housekeeper and the dad.
I didn't even put the connection between those two. That he says just very bluntly, he's like, "Oh, it must have ran out of poison, killing other people." And like 10 feet from him is just her father, just riddled with poison. He's like, "I wonder what." Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
too soon.
This is also 10 seconds after she's trying to mourn and grieve over her father's corpse, and he's like, "No time, gotta go."
And I like that he just gets hit in the eye so much. He's just like constantly getting smacked around by these Triffids.
Yeah, and no, this is a guy who like did this professionally. Like,
Well, he's only good at fighting blind people. That's
true.
His only skill set.
Yeah.
He was probably encumbered by his fly ass suit and tie outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is true. It's not the most like you don't have a lot of maneuverability in it.
Mhm.
It's just for picking up ladies, and it's going great.
Yeah. So far, he's 1 for 1.
It's true. But this is kind of, they flee that scene. You kind of get some more shots of London and people being menaced by Triffids. And they get basically caught in the road with a truck that's kind of blocking the entire road. It's, I guess, a grocery store truck. It's full of groceries anyway. And it's surrounded by blind people as they pull groceries off the back of this truck. Mm-hmm. And this is that zombie scene you mentioned earlier where they surround the car and start like slapping it with their hands, being like, "Who's in there? Can you see? Give us your eyes."
Yeah.
They're like demanding. They're like surrounded, like banging, and they're so afraid. They're too afraid.
I know. I would just just step on it.
Yeah,
drive over these people.
That's precisely my same thought. Is like, just keep driving. Well, no, I think they show that they get stuck on the
curb,
on the curb a little bit. Which, again, because I watching that back, I was like, couldn't he have just like backed up and driven around? But instead, he tries to like sneak around all of the blind people and gets stuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of, even when they surrounded them, they're like, "Oh no, they're gonna get us." I'm like, "Just get out of the car." And when they grab you, be like, "No, I'm not them. I'm also one of you blind people." They're still in the car. Like they don't know. They're not gonna be able to tell you're wrong.
That is
like,
true. Oh no, I'm also blind. Yes,
Yeah.
Is that you? Who is that? Ha ha, fooled you.
I mean, they're not gonna know the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
But like, this is the cliffhanger of this episode. It's like, are this gang of blind people surrounding the car gonna get them?
Yeah.
Such what is your favorite saying, Jordan? Stakes have never been higher.
Stakes have never been higher.
But it is kind of like where it wraps up is like they're being menaced now. They've got together. They're being menaced by blind people. I'm like, where will this show take us next? We'll only find out.
I'm hopefully out of the car. Not just sitting in the car with more flashbacks.
I think we're through with the flashbacks.
I think so
at least.
too.
Do you guys have any final thoughts on these episodes? Anything we didn't cover when we sort of like talk through the recap of them? Anything you desperately need to get out?
I just think they do a thing that remind me a lot of Doctor Who, but whenever something ominous happens, they do this very high-pitched whine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like they do it. The first time you hear it is where he's like, "They feed me breakfast at 7 a.m." And then the camera pans to the alarm clock and it's 10 to 8 and it's like, I was like, oh, that's highly dramatic. This man is waiting 50 minutes for his breakfast while also having a fruit plate next to his bed.
True. I did clock that later. I'm like, there's a whole plate of fruit right there.
You could miss it because they, at one point the camera, he has him in profile, but then zooms out to behind this massive stack of grapes. So like you're viewing the only person in the scene behind like this vine of grapes while he's complaining about how he hasn't been fed.
You know what? Over
That's
the course
classic
of these 2 episodes, almost everybody's primary concern is eating something. Whether it's Bill and his breakfast, every blind person is just like desperate to like. They've been blind for 6 hours. You probably have food at home, right? Like,
Well, I mean, that's
Your
the thing. Like,
fridge is so
if you actually think about it, a little thought experiment, as it were, and you're now like tonight you go blind. The first thing you're gonna do, like, obviously that'd be very traumatic and scary, and you'd be panicky. But I don't think the first thing I would think of is like, oh, I'm also really hungry. Like, I don't think that would be your normal response. Like, I mean, I know they want people in these zombie like fashions and people being very, ruled by their id, as it were. But yeah, like. Is hunger the number one thing?
it does feel like, and I mean, this is actually like 28 days later too. Like that starts off as a man waking up in a hospital and then wandering out into the streets. Like that's the exact start of the show. What they really wanted was like, this should probably be like a week later or 2 weeks later when it's starting, but they're starting it the next day, and they kind of stepped on the gas as far as the panic, but it's like, 3 days too soon.
You're right. It probably could be, a lot of this could be solved by like, he wakes up, you've been in
You're in
he's
a
been in the
coma.
hospital for
Yeah.
2 weeks. So now it's been 2 weeks of people panicking. But yes, it's like, it's literally the night before. So everyone calm down a little bit. You'll get your Fruit Loops.
It doesn't stand up necessarily to a lot of scrutiny, but
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? I was actually thinking about. I was like watching this, and I was obviously thinking about 20 Days Later. But I was like, oh yeah, remember that book and movie Blindness? I'm like,
do, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's another movie about the world going blind. And then I realized Apple Plus, the TV station, Apple's new TV show, they have a show starring Jason Momoa called C, about a post-apocalyptic world where everyone is blind.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, people love the idea of the world going blind. They're really into it. I didn't know this was a subgenre of things, but I'm like, people love it.
But it's funny, in the movie Blindness, it's the same thing. Like all the blind are kind of locked into this
Yeah, they're like,
psychiatric hospital
yeah,
almost.
sort of concentration, or not concentration camp, but like some sort of like, camp they're put into.
Yeah, but even in that, they're kind of abandoned, and then one of them gets a gun, and it gets all very,
Yeah,
kind of rapey and pillagey very quickly.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it's so funny. I've read the book and I've seen the movie, and I'm just like, there must be this feels like a spin off of this idea. Like the guy read Triffids and was like, I really like this, but I don't like the Triffids part. I'm really interested in what happens if everyone was blind, because it's so similar. Like it's just like the kickoff and kind of even what happens feels very similar.
What if the monster is the human inside of us all, and not a walking plant?
Yeah.
I like it better with a walking plant.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, Soviet walking plant.
Oh, it couldn't be more menacing.
It's probably just that the oil was just too spicy. How can you stop using it?
All right, you guys want to rate these episodes?
Sure.
Let's do part 1 first. We usually do it, I don't know if you know this, out of 10, 10-star rating.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go with part 1?
Well, what's your escape pod level? I don't want to tank it off the
It
get-go.
won't happen.
We usually fall, if we fall way below 5, basically.
Got you.
Although that's a big reveal for what you're going to rate.
Well,
here.
no, because I don't want to tank it. It's just the first episode is
You can
just
take it, it's fine.
well, the first episode, nothing happened. It's just all exposition. It's all a guy talking into a voice recorder with a couple of flashbacks, which Jordan loves. And then the episode ends. So I don't know. I'll give the first one. I'll give the first one a 5.
5. Jordan, what do you think?
I agree. Not a lot happens. It's all set up. For whatever reason, I sort of forgave that all because I was invested in. I thought it was an interesting idea. So the whole even flashbacks and stuff didn't really annoy me as much. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. This show really tickled me. I was very much enjoying it. It's like, it's dumb and like it's easy to poke holes in, but oh man, I was having a great time watching it. I'm going to go all the way up to an 8.
Good for you.
Now part 2, when he finally leaves the hospital.
You see now the hot racing action really
Now it
really
kicks
gets
in.
going. I'll give this one an 8.
Oh,
No,
wow.
you know,
Big
let's-
turnaround.
Yeah. You know what? Let's give it an 8.5. Let's give
Oh,
it.
holy
you know-
moly!
Well, just the extra half because I mean, as we were talking about, so many things have paid homage to
Right. The sort of the
you know
episode.
the guy coming out of the hospital and everything's gone to shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jordan?
I'm actually gonna go very close. I'm also gonna give this an 8.
An
I
8, wow.
liked it too. And again, there are definitely some problems in this. Like Nico mentioned it before. The scene with the guy in his vest took way too much time of the episode, and it's not perfect and it's kind of cheesy. But there's something very watchable and just fun about this, and it's like it could not be a more enjoyable like 25 minutes of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it. I felt the promise of the first episode wasn't entirely paid out. It's still pretty fun, the second episode, but I was like, stop talking to this guy in his house. Let's keep going. Let's not spend too much time looking at Joe in this pub and like time. But I still like really enjoyed it. So I actually am going to drop mine to 7.5, but I just felt like I could have pushed the gas down a little harder on it. But I still very much enjoyed it. This show's hitting me in the right place, you guys. I'm really liking it. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for the episode. Nico, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It was a pleasure to add a new voice to the podcast from Britain, so we get a much better accent than we usually have.
Okay, well,
That's what we're hoping. We're just hoping for your accent.
I was about to say none of this is real. This was all done for the podcast.
Yeah, oh yeah. What's your real voice sound like?
Oh no, I can't divulge that. That takes away all of my charm.
But yes, it was a pleasure having you on. It was nice. It was nice hearing someone who actually kind of knows about this world a little bit, because I was coming in blind. I didn't even know this was a popular idea. So the fact that you were like, "Oh yeah, I know all about this,"
Yeah,
it was good to have. Jordan, pleasure as always.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see some clips from the show, we're gonna have some all kinds of Triffid stuff. We're gonna have so many clips of Triffids' tongue shooting out,
Yep.
them walking around. Probably a blind doctor jumping off a roof.
Probably a lot of clips of that guy trying to convince Bill not to leave his house.
Yeah, we're just going to have a long 25-minute clip of that happening. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ContinuumDrag. And, of course, you can write to us at continuumdrag@gmail.com if you have any things you really need to share with us via email. But that wraps it up. So, Jordan, see you next week.
See you then.
Jordan, this is for you. Danger Mouse.
Oh, that's so good.
Thank you.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rexedler. Produced by Jordan Delic and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes, Adam Wheatner, Jeff Hanley, Jane McRae, and Stephen Packard.